Well, I got some news for you, Buttercup. We're either going to have gold and silver much higher or much lower by the end of this very week. We have quite a week on our hands. This is a major week for the price of gold, for the price of silver, and for the price of the precious metals mining stocks. It'll affect the whole market. It might affect the whole universe. It might affect your marriage. But what is going on this week that will shape the price of the precious metals as we move into the coming months, quarters, and years? We have inflation numbers coming out, and Jerome Powell and his chiefs from the Federal Reserve banks around the country are going to get together and make their final monetary declaration. They're going to set the interest rate, and that will move the markets. But what's most important and fascinating about all of this is we are at a paradigm shift. We are at a pivot point. Things are changing. I'm going to explain to you how I see it and how I think the future for gold, for silver, for the precious metal mining stocks might be changing right now. Have you been driven a little crazy over the last couple of years investing in gold, investing in silver, investing in the precious metal mining stocks? That's really been brutal because all we were taught over all the decades was that gold and silver would hold their value in an inflationary environment. And what did we get over the last year, 2 years? Record-setting inflation. So it would be normal for us to expect that the price of gold, the price of silver, the price of the precious metal mining stock should have done very well. But as we know, they did not. They struggled. And you know why? I got news for you. They forgot to tell us. Gold and silver, and the mining stocks for that matter, they sniff out the future. They look out 6 months, 12 months, a year and a half out. And when they were doing that, over the last 2 years, year and a half, they were sniffing out tightening, hawkish monetary policy coming through from the Federal Reserve. Whether they're really trying to fight inflation or not, they're put up a great show for the world and for the herd, right? We're not the herd. We're just a little sliver of the population. Those of us who dive a little deeper, they didn't fool us. We know they're not really trying to fight inflation, but the herd, they look at their TV and the TV said that the Fed is fighting inflation. They believed it. They sold gold and silver. Now, they held up pretty well, gold and silver, given the tough environment they were in. But now we're at a different spot, right? We got a big week this week. Inflation's starting to change. The Fed is starting to change. And as gold and silver look out 6 months, a year into the future, you know what it sniffs? It sniffs a dirty, stinky, big, ugly recession. And that throws a big, big monkey wrench into any hawkish plans. Just wanted to say thank you, friend, once again for joining me here in Ron's Basement. We love talking about this stuff. Gold, silver, what's going to go on this week with the big Fed decisions. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. Know that you are always welcome here. We are really a sliver of a sliver. It's important that we stick together. I want to keep this real simple for you because I understand how confusing it can all get. What's good is bad, what's bad is good, but then that's good is bad, and it can all turn into a big jumble of confusion very, very quickly. But what's happening right now is real simple. Let's look at the inflation numbers first. Tuesday, we'll get inflation numbers. If they are higher than expected, meaning if inflation is still running higher than what the market expects, that will be perceived as good for gold. Because, and this is very important for us to understand, while high inflation over the last year, year and a half, 2 years was bad for the price of gold because that meant the Fed could put the screws on, aggressive monetary policy, continue to raise rates. Now we're at a point where the economy is slowing down and the Fed can't continue to raise rates so easily. Under that scenario, higher inflation than is expected, the market's going to start to lose confidence in the Fed's ability to fight inflation because they're not going to be able to keep raising rates without killing the economy even further. And everyone is talking about how the economy is looking weak in 2023. Whether you're talking about economists or CEOs or the top analysts, everyone sees major weakness coming through in 2023. So if those higher inflation numbers come through, the herd's going to start waking up a little bit and saying, well, wait a minute here, we still have high inflation, but the economy's slowing down too. So I don't know that the Fed can really control inflation. And then boom, gold, silver go back to their first priority of protecting you and me, the people that hold the metals, against the effects of inflation. Now, I think I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, Ron, but what if inflation comes in lower than expected? What if those geniuses at the Federal Reserve are actually winning on their fight against inflation? Well, then there's also a positive outcome for that as well, because the market will look at that and say, look, inflation's coming down. The Fed doesn't have to be so tight, so hawkish with their monetary policy, especially in light of the fact that, again, the economy is going to poop. But even under that scenario, we know what's really going on, right? Sure, they've lowered inflation a little bit. Now they have to deal with a crappy economy. So when they loosen up monetary policy a little bit, right, which is good for gold and silver, both of these scenarios are good. Yeah, good for gold and silver. When they loosen up, that's going to cause inflation to go right back up again. And at that point, the herd realizes the Fed can't really fight inflation. And gold and silver go back to their first priority, protecting you and me against the effects of inflation. Now, it might take the herd a little longer to wake up to what we already know. And on Wednesday, we'll get the big announcement from the Federal Reserve about their hike in interest rates. The market definitely expecting 0.5%. There's a chance it could be 0.75%. I don't think it makes too much of a difference either way. If they go with the 0.75%, I think that could definitely send gold back down to 1,700. I mean, Jerome Powell would be looked at like the Grinch who stole Christmas because the general markets wouldn't react favorably as well. But when the herd wakes up, if that were to occur, that outlier, that 0.75%, when they wake up and think, boy, the Fed is really freaking, they're having a hard time with inflation. They're raising rates even more than we expected, and that's going to kill the economy in 2023 even more than we anticipated, which means at some point the Fed is going to have to go back to printing money. And we know under it all, right? We're talking on the surface. Under it all, from a mathematical perspective, all the debt that we have in this country, the deficits that we run in this country, there's no way that the Fed can really fight inflation. Inflating the debt away is the only viable option they'll look at because they don't want to do a reset. That would hurt all their big, super, ultra wealthy buddies who kind of sort of control what's going on anyway. So when we look at all the moving pieces, all the factors involved, it's hard for me to see a 2023 where those factors could align against the price of gold and silver. Look, I could definitely be wrong. You know that. And I've proven it many, many times in the past. But I think we have some sunny days ahead for the price of gold and silver. And as a matter of fact, I think right now, the sun may just be beginning to rise. We've been through a tough couple years. We've been through some hard times and we've done it together. We'll stick together now. I'll see you next time.